everybody. So I'm going to turn awkwardly here. Well, I'm Jamie Raspberry with the Mississippi Alliance of Nonprofits and Philanthropy, and thank y'all for coming today. And those of you that are on Zoom and joining us virtually, we appreciate you taking out time on a Friday to come and meet with us. And we're really excited to have the Beam office here to talk about the work that they're doing on the broadband deployment across the state. So it's important to the Alliance to be a part of this conversation and, you know, have a role in ensuring that there's accessibility and access and all the things across the state, because what you may not know is that there's about 15,000 nonprofits in Mississippi, and they depend on broadband to be able to deliver their services and programs to meet needs in communities across the state. So we have a very keen interest in making sure that our nonprofits are included and represented and aware of what's going on in the great work that's the Beam office is leading. So it's just an informational session today. They're going to be sharing all the information about what's happening at their office and what's coming, and the federal funding that is about to go into their 5-year strategic plan. So I don't know all of that information, but they do, and that's why they're here to share it with you. So I'm going to introduce Sally Birchfield Doty, who is the director of the Beam office, and she's going to come up and introduce, I think, some of her team, and we're going to have them share, and then we'll have a time for questions and answers. And then we will wrap up with some few other details. And I have some things that I'll share that we're going to be working on moving forward. So turn it over to y'all.
Good morning. And I have to talk in the microphone over here, I think, to be on camera, so it's very awkward here. So let me figure this out. You think we could turn a little bit? Yeah, let's turn a little bit. That is, oh, that's much better. How does that work? Carlos, does that work okay? Okay, all right. Well, good. And we're going to share some slides that I have anyway. So I just want to say how much I appreciate all of you coming over here this afternoon. I want to give you a lot of information and kind of let you know what we have been doing in the Beam office, and then how you can help us, because we do need help from nonprofits around the state, and we have some very specific items that we hope that you'll assist us with. So this is our office. We're the Beam office. We were created about a year ago in some legislation. Prior to that time, we really didn't have a broadband office in the state of Mississippi. We're an office of 6 people. Then we have one other contract person. I've got some of my folks here today. I've got Angel Stenmark, who's our grants manager. Ashley, wave over there. Ashley's our communications director. Jonathan is a grants analyst. I've got Katie, who manages our office back here. Kaylin, who works with our digital skills and accessibility program that I'm going to be talking more about today. So we're a small group of about 7, but we have a lot of outside help as well. We have contractors who work with us. We have mapping contractor, legal, accounting, all of those important parts that we need. So my number one job, I feel like, in the Beam office is deployment, is to make sure we get service out to everyone in Mississippi. So I'm sure you have all heard there is a tremendous amount of federal money coming to Mississippi, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is what that federal money is, how it is going to be deployed, kind of what the timeline is, and how that's all going to happen. So before you go, you can see one important thing before we grant out any money for this deployment, we've got to know where it's going to go. So our office has been very involved and engaged over this past year in determining exactly where all of our unserved and underserved locations are in the state of Mississippi. The FCC map, if you go to the main broadband map for the FCC map, it says that Mississippi is 100% served. Yeah, which is not true, right? We're not 100% served. That includes satellite and some other technologies that really just don't give you the speeds that are true broadband. And so I think when I say broadband from here on out, what I'm going to say is high-speed internet. High-speed internet. Internet that allows you to not only download information, but upload information, to participate in a Zoom call and to upload information. That is really the issue, a lot of the issue that we have here in Mississippi. So we have, according to the federal, there's the FCC map, and then there's a national broadband map that takes off those satellite providers. So according to that, we have 268,860 unserved locations in Mississippi and almost 40,000 underserved. Now, I don't know who's knows all the numbers here, but underserved, or let's go with unserved. Unserved is below 25 down, 3 up. That is the definition being used for this BEAD funding that we have. Unserved, below 25 down, 3 up. Underserved, below 100 down, 20 up, for the purposes of the BEAD funding, which is the large funding that we're going to talk about. Now, in Mississippi, we have a little bit of a different speed threshold. When our office was created, there was the speed for unserved in Mississippi is 100 down, 20 up. So it's that underserved speed level. So it gets confusing talking about speeds. I will tell you the 25.3 is kind of cable DSL or DSL that we all had at one time and thought was plenty fast. And at that time it was plenty fast before we started having to do a lot of remote work and had telehealth and all these different things that we could do online. So that's where we are. That is our number that we're starting with is 268,000. Now, let's go to the next one. Now, Mississippi has been very fortunate in the past few years, and we've gotten a lot of additional federal funding prior to this federal funding that we're going to get. One of the large pots of federal funding is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And if you look at the state, this map that we have up here, these are all of the locations in Mississippi that are going to participate in this Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And it is this federal funding that really has allowed some of our electric co-ops to build out. They have used that funding. So up in the north part of the state, a lot of those co-ops really use that funding. In the south part of the state, I'm from Brookhaven down in southwest Mississippi. There's a provider there that has a very large RDOF award that is just getting started on their build out. RDOF has certain milestones to get their projects completed. Most of them have to reach 40% completion by 2024, 60%, 25, 80%, 26, and then they got to be 100% built out. Is that right, Angel? Did I have those right? Okay, so RDOF, Mississippi had the second highest RDOF award in the nation. So it was really good for us. But also what that means is if a location, if your address, my address where I live in Brookhaven, if it has RDOF funding attached to it, we can't give it additional funding. It is ineligible for this. I'm going to talk about the CPF program or the BEAD funding. So it's very important to know what locations in Mississippi already have federal funding attached. And that has been a bit difficult to nail down, but we have a good map now, certainly that tells us our RDOF. Reconnect is another program, same thing. If there's Reconnect for a location, we cannot stack the federal grants. Reconnect is a program administered by the USDA, and they're still giving out awards. So there's one Reconnect grant out there right now. We don't have all the details on it, so we don't have it on our map yet. There's also, and those are projects that are being administered by other entities. The FCC is directly doing that RDOF award. They're in charge of that. And the providers have to report to the FCC. Reconnect, USDA. Now, the next is in beams in our bucket. The broadband infrastructure program, that is a grant that our office applied for before we were even the beam office. I was over at the Mississippi Public Utilities staff and we applied for this grant. It's $32 million in funding. We've got about 10 projects across the state. And they are currently, man, it's taken us almost 2 years to get to the construction point of those projects, but we're there now. I went to a groundbreaking yesterday. And so those projects are all starting to build out. I will tell you, we had some, in this BIP program, it has shown me the importance of getting out and talking to different communities and having engagement meetings. We went up to, I'm not going to say exactly where because we haven't told them about this yet, but we went up to a community engagement meeting up in North Mississippi. And I will tell you, the folks that came in were mad. They were mad because they had no broadband service. They could barely even get cell phone service. So in fact, as we were walking into the meeting, the county administrator said, Ms. Doty, I'm just going to tell you, they're probably going to be a little ugly to you. And I'm like, oh, gee, thank you. But, it was a community that could not even get cell service. And it was a real health and safety issue for that small community. So we have been able to work them in. We had a rescope of this BIP program. We had one provider that ended up pulling themselves out. So we were able to plug this community in. And we just got that affirmation from the feds that we could proceed with that project. Takes us to 12 projects around the state. Good for that 32 million. All right, so from our 268,000, right, of unserved locations, we're going to deduct everybody who's got RDOF. We're going to deduct all the locations that have Reconnect. We're going to deduct all the locations that have broadband infrastructure program funding. And then that brings us to the Capital Projects Fund. The Capital Projects Fund is ARPA funding that came straight to the state for broadband expansion. And we submitted our plan, and our plan was very vanilla. It was, we want to build some broadband infrastructure. Submitted our plan it's run by Treasury. We submitted it to Treasury in September, was not approved until late May of this year. So as soon as we got that, we opened up the application portal. We'd been doing everything in the background to get ready for that. And so we opened up that application portal June the 15th. We were going to keep it open for a month, but several of the providers said, oh, we really need some more time. A lot of the providers did. So we kept it open until August the 17th. So we have all of those applications right now. This Capital Projects Fund is for unserved locations. And it is 162 million total. Now that includes some administrative expenses that our office, we're using to pay for some of our salaries. We're using to pay for some of these contractual services that we have, but it's 162 million overall. For the Capital Projects Fund, we had $530 million in applications. So it is extremely oversubscribed. So our office has some very difficult decisions to make moving forward. It is a competitive grant process. We have all their requirements. We have a scoring rubric that we will be using. And so we're in the process of going through all of those applications right now. So if y'all want to bring us some cookies or something while we're working on all that, we'd appreciate it because it's a lot of work. We hope to have those initial awards made later this fall. And then our Mississippi statute requires that there is a 30-day period, kind of a challenge process where another provider could come in and say, oh, no, you shouldn't award to them because we've already built there, or we're going to build there in 6 months. We've already done the engineering, for whatever reason. So we make our initial awards. Then when we have a challenge period for 30 days, then the awards become final, and then we're working, trying to get to construction just as fast as we can. And I want to make sure y'all understand that all of these awards are going to internet service providers. That's who it's going to. So when I say we're building, I mean the provider is building. And you know that is anybody from small telephone companies. It is C Spire, AT&T, cable companies around the state. So we have about 60 providers in the state. 74. We have 74 providers on our listing of providers in Mississippi. So it could be any of those providers that could apply for that money and then eventually build that out. All right, so CPF, we're in the midst of it right now. We got to go from 530 in applications to really about less than 162 when we take out some admin expenses. But the good news is we also then will deduct the number of locations we're going to pass with CPF from that 268 number, right? So it's getting better and better. So we think that we're going to be down to about 171,000 unserved locations that we need to fund with BEAD funding. Here's another, and I'll explain that. Here's another little information about the Capital Projects Fund. We expect to serve 40 to 60,000 locations with that Capital Projects Fund. And you can see over here, this is a map that we've used to show providers what was eligible and what was not eligible. And this map is going to be very important. We're going to be using this map, and I want y'all to know about the next iteration of this map. But this has been our Capital Projects Fund map to show what is eligible and what is not eligible. All right, let's keep on going. So Capital Projects Fund, all these other things are great. We've been working on them. What we are also working on at the same time is planning for BEAD, B-E-A-D. Yeah, sounds a lot like BEAM, BEAD. And BEAD is this federal program, broadband equity and accessibility, broadband equity access deployment. I was close. Broadband equity access deployment is the BEAD funding. BEAD funding is nationally, it is almost $45 billion that's going to go out to all of the states to build out broadband, okay? So we've been in a planning period for that BEAD funding for this past year. We got some funds. Some funds are allocated out of that for us to do our planning, which we've used to hire our mapping company. We have used to hire our accountants, get our grant portal together, do all these things that we got to do when we get $1.2 billion in money to pass out all over the state. So these are really too small for you to look at, but what we are very, very targeted on doing is making data-driven decisions. If somebody asks me why we gave a certain grant award out, why we did something, we're going to have the data to tell you this is exactly why we did it. Because that is so important as we move forward. So data-driven decisions. We want to make sure we have the best network technology. We have our fiber bills or the optimal bills. So we use our money very efficiently so we can reach everybody. I was talking with we have a group that is that does some data modeling for us to help us understand how much it's going to cost to get to all these different locations. And we were looking at one particular county, and in that particular county, there were 3 locations in different parts that each cost $300,000 to get to. One location. So $1 million to get to 3 locations. Like, that's probably not the best use of our funding, to run fiber, expensive fiber out to those locations. I'm not sure if it's somebody's fishing camp or hunting camp or what. We're going to do a little look at that. But, so it is incumbent upon our office to determine, what is, and this is part of the BEAD program, what is that level? They call it an extremely high cost threshold. What is that extremely high cost threshold when we're going to say, God, it's just too expensive to build out to perhaps one household? If it costs $300,000, maybe we could use some fixed wireless or some other type of technology to reach you. Maybe we subsidize your Starlink, might be cheaper. What is it? How are we going to move forward with these extremely high cost locations? And we're in the midst of determining exactly where those are right now and what that threshold is going to be. We got to make a decision and report that to the feds pretty soon, within the next few months. So we're working with our consultants to figure that out. Go back to the last one. So BEAD, for a long time when I went and talked to folks, I was like, we're waiting to know what our allocation is. We're waiting to know what our allocation is. We didn't know how much money we were getting out of the 45 billion. Now we know. We know that Mississippi is getting $1.2 billion. And that is in the top tier, is probably in the top 10 or 12 states for funding. So it is a lot of money, and it is a big responsibility. So with that 1.2 billion, we've got to get to all those 171,000 locations. And plus, we hope to get to the majority of those underserved locations too. You can use this BEAD funding for some non-deployment functions. You can use it for some workforce training. You can use it for some cybersecurity training, digital skills training. But I'm going to tell you, our number one priority is deployment. And so I think first our money is going to go to deployment, and I think it's going to take all of our money to go for maybe the majority of it. And in fact, we might be 100 million short, maybe, but we're going to be really, really close to building out to everyone. And I wish I could be more specific, but it is just a moving target all the time. It's going to depend on how many locations we're able to pass with our CPF funding. Are we going to be able to get that 171,000 number down even further so we have more money? So this is what I ponder on and think about when I go to sleep at night is, what are all these numbers eventually going to be? And I've got this one reporter from the New York Times that emails me every day and says, how much are you going to reach everybody? Are you going to reach everybody? And I'm like, yes, our intent is we're going to reach everybody. But it is going to take very efficient use and the most optimal use of our funding and technology to reach everybody. Now let's move. So BEAD requires a lot of different things from the state. Now BEAD has recognized that states really do know what is best in their particular state. I tell you, it has been so good for us to have this broadband office and have one office that really has dug in and understands all the aspects of the funding, because this funding is kind of scattered out everywhere, right? So, people will call me all the time and say, oh, well, Sally, I hear we've got this. I'm like, no, we don't have that. We understand where the funding is, where the service is, where it's not. So it's been very good for our state. We were one of the last states to stand up a broadband office, so we're playing a little bit of catch up. But we say that we're not just catching up, we're kind of leapfrogging ahead. And we've really been able to do that with our data. Our mapping consultant has really helped us with our data. And so we're in a very good position here in Mississippi. So, it really allows, so BEAD allows states to design their own program. Then it also requires a competitive process to award these grants. I'm not just going to give them to whoever I want to. We're going to have a competitive process to award the grants, much like we're doing in CPF right now. That was a competitive process. So we will score the different grants, and we don't have that process all worked out yet, but we will. That's what we're working on right now. BEAD does require matching funds from a provider, matching funds of 25%. And that is in order to maximize this funding and also to make sure that this provider can really take on this responsibility. You know, this is a financial risk, and it's a lot of technology that you've got to keep going. So we want providers that are able to put some skin in the game. There's a very limited waiver process for some instances, and we'll cross that road when we get to it, but there's an overall requirement of 25% match. And all of this, all of our programs, all of our awards, everything has to be approved by NTIA. NTIA is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. And they're our best friends. We talk to them all the time. They're our best friends. They're our big brother. They're everything. We talk to them all the time. We submit reports to them all the time. We will submit to them our 5-year plan, our initial proposal that has, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So what I want you all to know, you know, as I've done some community engagement around the state, there's some people who are concerned. They say, oh, this money, it's not going to go where it needs to go. It's going to, you know, it's going to go to places that already have service, or it's not going to go to the Delta. We know it's just going to be like everything else. No, that is not the case. We are going to have to show what our plan is, and it all has to be approved by NTIA. And BEAD prioritizes counties that are in persistent poverty. I will have to say, you all may not, working in the nonprofit field, y'all might have been a little more familiar with these numbers or this graph than I was, but I was a little shocked to see the number of counties that we have in Mississippi that are defined as being in persistent poverty. And here is that map, the darker colors. So we got to, my priority is these counties, and it's the majority of the state, right? So, but again, we're going to be making decisions based on data as we go out to these different areas. All right, so the BEAD timeline, we have a lot going on right now. We have a 5-year action plan that we are going to release probably within the next week. I've got the draft of it sitting in my email right now. It's almost ready to go. And really what that 5-year plan does is it talks about what catalogs what we've already done in this planning phase, and also gives a cost for universal service. And we think that cost for universal service is going to be about $1.9 billion for Mississippi. Because think about this, if you take our BEAD allocation of 1.2 billion, I'm going to just kind of simplify this. You take our BEAD allocation of 1.2 billion, you add the 25% match on top, that gets you to about 1.6 billion. We're going to add our CPF funding on there, that gets us to about 1.75 billion. So that leaves us about 150 or 200 million shy. And I really think that with the additional federal funding that's going to be out, the Reconnect grants we talked about, and also our electric co-ops, many of them have projects that are going that they're not requesting federal funding for. So I really think that last 200 million, that might close up, or that might be our gap. That might be our gap. So we're going to be very close. It's extremely hard to budget out $1.2 billion when it's a moving target all the time, but that's what we're working on doing. So that 5-year action plan, and those are the numbers that are going to be in it, but it really catalogs what we've done as our office over the past year. Our stakeholder engagement, we've had we had 20 really defined meetings that our office hosted, but we have been a part of over 60, probably more than that. Ashley, how many meetings would you say we've had around the state? We've been on the road. We have tried to meet in as many unserved communities as we could. We've been to the supervisors convention. We have been to the municipal small town convention. We have been to all sorts of planning and development districts. We've met with them. So we've really been trying to get out and help communities understand what this money is, what's coming, and perhaps what they can do to help. So the 5-year action plan coming out soon. We'll be glad. We're going to have it out on our website. We'll put our website up there again, but it's beam.ms.gov. Beam, BEAM. So we'll have that 5-year action plan. We'd be glad to take any comments that you have on that action plan as soon as we put it out. So be watching for that. If you'll follow our social media, we'll tell you when we put it up there. We have to have a portion of our initial proposal done before the end of the year, and that is a challenge process. And I want y'all all to listen. This is where we need some help from nonprofits is in this challenge process. This is required under BEAD. It is required that the state run a challenge process, and that is to challenge service. So maybe your service, maybe you don't have service, where our map, I hope that's not the case, or the FCC map shows that you do if you don't have service, or if your service is slower than what is reflected on the map. So this is an opportunity for that challenge to be made, and then for our office to look into it. And what will happen is a city or county government can make a challenge, a nonprofit can make a challenge, and this is all federal. This is all defined under the federal BEAD requirements. So nonprofits, city and county governments, are tribal entities, or providers. Okay, those are the 4 categories of folks that can make a challenge. We are working through how that is going to work right now. Where we have a draft of our challenge process that's being reviewed by NTIA right now. We have a liaison, Ty James. I don't know if many of y'all know Ty, but Ty is our liaison with NTIA, and so a lot of times they will take part of our information, look at it for us, kind of like getting your homework approved by the teacher before you turn in your final. So they are looking at that right now. But what that is going to require to file a challenge, it's going to require some speed test verification. So you have to have, so if I am a town, I'm going to have to go out and find some of my good citizens who will run speed tests for me. And we have that speed test tool available on our website. We've got it available. In fact, you can see it right here, but it requires 6 speed tests per census group, not just census block, but census group. So of course, maybe we want more than 6, right? Just to be careful, we would want maybe 12 or 15, right? So 6 speed tests on 3 different days, not just on Monday, but maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. Our office is going to come up with, and I'm sure NTIA also is going to have some materials for nonprofits, for city and county governments to walk you through that speed test and make sure everything is done correctly according to what their requirements are. So the speed test is going to be available at our website, broadbandms.com. We've had this website up for about 8 months now with this speed test tool, mainly just to help us understand where service is, to help the BEAM office understand where service is. So we have had this up. We've had about 5,000 people run speed tests on it already, and it's really helped us as we look around the state. So that is the tool we're going to use. So if you go to broadbandms.com, and you hit the red button, take the test, and it runs 3 separate tests. It runs the UCLA test, MLab, and some other tests. So it runs 3 separate speed tests and tells you what your speed is, and then it logs it onto our state map. Yeah. If you do have service and we're showing as unserved, then we need that. That would be a great challenge. And I'm sure the providers will be on that and will help us with that. But yeah, so the speed test tool is going to be very important as we move forward through this challenge process. And it's so important because what we're trying to do is make sure our map is correct, so we know where the funding needs to go. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be working with Jamie through this Alliance of Nonprofits to get information out about this challenge process. We think we will run it November. We're thinking November is when this will happen. We've got to send our process to the feds, make sure they approve it. And we're thinking November. We don't want to do it, maybe we might go into December a little bit. We hate to do anything like this during the holidays. So we're going to try to get it off. Yeah. In the meantime, you can certainly use that speed test tool is there. You can certainly, if you want to have a group to go ahead and use it, they are welcome to, and it'll be logged on our map. All right, so that's one thing that's coming up. I also want to talk to you about the Affordable Connectivity Program. Y'all know about the Affordable Connectivity Program? Yes, no, lot do. So the Affordable Connectivity Program gives a $30 a month subsidy for your broadband service, for your high-speed internet service. It goes to the provider. It does not go to the individual. It goes to the provider. And this is going to be so important. We already have, a good representation in Mississippi. I saw that number this morning. I can't remember what my number is. Is it up here? Oh, there you go. Over 228,000 Mississippians are already taking advantage of this. And we need to get the word out about this Affordable Connectivity Program. We have flyers about it on the back table. There are flyers you can print out. I think the feds will send you some flyers. So there are all sorts of resources for ACP. There are 4 or 5 different entities in Mississippi that have gotten funding to help promote the ACP, some to do in-person events, sign-up events. Our office was the recipient of one grant, and we're going to do a media campaign to help people know about this opportunity. So we haven't started that. We're going to start that after the first of the year. All right. So in addition to all of these grants that we've already talked about, there is another smaller grant that is coming to the state of Mississippi. It is called the Digital Skills and Accessibility Grant. It's the Digital Equity Grant from the feds. It's the state Digital Equity Grant. And it has 8 covered populations that are covered. I've got them listed up here. They're a little hard to see. I'm going to read them out. So it's aging, veterans, individuals with disabilities, incarcerated individuals, members of racial or minority groups, rural residents, individuals with a language barrier, or individuals who live in a low-income household under 150% of the poverty line. So we have 8 covered populations. So let me tell you a little bit about this grant. This grant is $2.5 billion nationwide. I cannot get anybody to give me an idea of how much we're going to get in the state of Mississippi. I think that it is, just from my back of the envelope math, I think we're going to get $3 or $4 million a year for 4 or 5 years. So probably a total, my math may not work right there, probably a total of about $15 million, I think. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. We are in a planning period for that as well. Our office convened a core planning group, and what we did is we got individuals from those covered populations kind of in leadership positions from those covered populations. And we've met with them to kind of explain what this is and talk about strategies to reach all of those covered populations. And that is what I need from y'all here today as well, is strategies to reach all of these covered populations and to help them with any barriers that they have to access or affordability. So, the number one barrier to access is I don't have high-speed internet, right? So deployment, I see that as my number one job, is getting high-speed internet out there. But then also, there are a lot of other factors, and affordability, of course, is one of those. It's just too expensive. Well, we've got ACP, and then also all of the grant-funded projects are required to have a low-cost option. So we're going to be looking at those costs that are going to be those monthly costs that are going to be charged in our office as we administer grants. And we're going to try to keep them, there has to be an affordable, low cost option. So, but still affordability is going to be an issue. We know that. So affordability, what other barriers are there for these specific groups? Well, aging, and maybe I'll put myself in that own category, right? Aging, it is, you know, kind of the fear of somebody taking cybersecurity issues or somebody taking advantage of you. You know, what are barriers to access? You know, is it that is there a credit check before you can get service? We've done some surveys, worked with Mississippi State, who's going to talk here in just a minute, to find out what some of these obstacles and barriers to service are. Because what we need and what we want is everybody to take service. Adoption rate is going to be huge, because it's kind of this is really a financial case, right? We're providing federal funds to build out into areas that it really hadn't made financial sense to build out into, right? It hadn't made financial sense for a private carrier to build out to. Now we're going to give them some capital funds to build out, but then they still got to operate it and maintain it. There's still costs that are going to be incurred. And the more people who participate in that network, the stronger that network is. And so we need adoption rates to go up. The availability of devices, having a computer or a tablet in your home, something other than your cell phone, is going to be really important as well. So I think that is something we're going to be looking at. So as we move forward with our digital skills and accessibility grant, I don't think that grant is going to really be awarded. Like I said, we're in the planning period. Our planning period ends in December, and we have to submit our digital skills and accessibility plan for the state of Mississippi, which is one reason I'm so glad that Jamie and I kind of got together to have this meeting, because I would love for all of you to help contribute to that plan, because we have to list our strategies to reach all of these covered populations. And we've done a good bit of this work. We have with MSU and with our community colleges, we've done a good bit of this work, but you all have a different relationship with your communities. And so we are really looking for what insight that you can provide about strategies to reach all of these populations. Now, you know, we use a lot of lofty language and all of these grant documents and press releases that go out. A lot of times it's, you know, we're closing the digital divide. And, you know, I'm not sure if we can close the digital divide in Mississippi with $12 or $15 million in funding for these types of activities. I hope we can. We're certainly going to, with the BEAD funding, close the deployment divide. We're going to do our best to, but it's training, skills training, making people understand the importance of having high-speed internet, what you can use it for. That's going to be so important. So we're going to need your help on that. All right. We have worked with the MSU Extension Service, and we have Devin, who is here from the Extension Service, who's going to come talk a little bit to do some asset mapping. What do we have now? What do we have now? Who is out there now teaching digital skills and doing digital skills training? What groups are out there? You know, just offhand, when I know that our libraries, if you're from a small town, you know that the library in your town has Wi-Fi, right? That you can go park outside and get Wi-Fi if you don't have service. And all of our libraries have fiber now. They have all finished that project. They all have fiber. They all have great, most of them have, you know, computer labs within the library. And so the libraries have been involved in this work for a long time. Mississippi State Extension has been involved in this work for a long time. And I'm going to let Devin talk a little bit more about that. So before I turn it over, here's what I need. You know, the opportunities for engagement with nonprofits, as I see it, is if y'all can help us with any strategies for ACP awareness, whether that is just, providing handouts somewhere or actually hosting sign-up events. And I think that is really what we're looking for, is some partners to do some sign-up events. And then strategies for reaching these covered populations. What are the strategies? We've already identified some, for example, in our core planning team. We had Chris from the Veterans. He was here earlier. I don't see him. There he is. You're hiding right there. From Veterans Administration, we've identified there's a program that if you go to the VA, there's a program where in certain circumstances you can get a tablet and do some of your visits by telehealth. So, we've identified some certain programs there. So what are the programs that already exist? Maybe we could leverage, or some programs that might need to be put into place. I think anything that we can leverage that's existing would be a great use of our money as we move forward. Anything to increase adoption. And that's going to be exposing people to what you can do on the internet, showing. I was trying to convince my husband the other day that he could really get his medication online, refill it online, instead of calling on the telephone and punching in his number, that it's more information there. So how can we increase adoption? And then also workforce development. We're going to need more people to actually help us with this build out. And that ranges from folks who drive a forklift to network engineers, all across the board. We are working with our community colleges. We have met with all of the workforce development offices of all of our community colleges and working with Accelerate Mississippi for our workforce needs. But you nonprofits might have some sort of special relationship or some additional information for us that we could plug into our plan, and we would be glad to have that. So I'm going to relinquish the podium. I've talked long enough for right now, and ask Devin from MSU. And Devin, I'm sorry, I can't come up with your last name right now. What? Mills? Oh, great. Mills. Devin Mills from Mississippi State is going to come up and speak. And then I would love to have a time of question and answer. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Sure. Uh-huh. We also had a contract with every HCBU and all of our 8 community colleges. So not all of our HCBUs. We work through all of our public community colleges and universities. And so same thing, we asked them to run, we got a connectivity survey that they ran among their students and their community at large. And then we engaged our universities to help us with these covered populations and help us come up with strategies for these covered populations. So yes, we have. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And looking for additional ways to work together. All right, so Devin Mills, sorry about that. Come on up. We have some show and tell up here. I'm going to put these out on the table. This is fiber that we're talking about, and really what fiber is it is a hairline piece of glass, and light goes through that glass, and the speed of light is extremely fast. And the fiber that it runs on is tiny, very tiny in here. I've got what? Bigger one is right here. Oh, here you go. Here you go. Yeah. So this is just an example. And it's, it is, you can update it. There are all kinds of fibers in here. So we talk about fiber all the time. This is what fiber is. And I'm going to put it on the table. And Devin, I'm going to pass it to you. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to BEAM and the Mississippi Alliance of Nonprofits and Philanthropy for letting me come here and talk with you all today. So as Director Doty mentioned, my name is Devin Mills. I am from the Mississippi State University Extension Service, and right now Extension is partnered with BEAM to build an inventory of all the organizations in Mississippi who are working to promote and build up digital skills and literacy in their communities across the state. So some examples of organizations that we're looking to be in our inventory. We want organizations who do digital skills and trainings, anything from teaching people how to get on a computer, go on the internet, apply for a job, pay their bills, things like that, all the way to more advanced skills like coding, building websites, anything that just promotes your digital skills and allows you to be more digitally active. So we're looking for those organizations. We're also looking for organizations or nonprofits who help people afford digital devices, maybe organizations that give out subsidies. So you could go and purchase a laptop or a desktop for you to have at home. We want to hear from those organizations. We also want to hear from organizations who have publicly accessible computers and internet for people from the public to come to a central location to log on the internet if they don't have that at home, or to use a computer if they don't have that at home. That's where our libraries have really come in and been a part of this project with us. We've heard a lot from our libraries across the state because they do have that central location in the community where people can come, get on the computer, and also our libraries provide so many digital skills, trainings, and have so many resources available for people. So our libraries have been a great respondent and participant in this survey. We also want to hear from philanthropic organizations who fund digital inclusion work. So if you are an organization that gives out funding to promote and fund digital inclusion efforts in the community, we want to hear from you. So we are asking these organizations in Mississippi to take a short 10-15-minute long survey that will let us know who you are, what you do, where you're located, and what populations you serve. That survey will also tell us what services you offer and if people have to pay for these services, if these services are free, and what those services look like. So the survey is available online. It is at that website that Director Doty mentioned, the broadbandms.com. That's the same place where you can go to take your speed test. You can also go to take the survey if you are an organization or philanthropic group who fits in this digital inclusion category. I also have flyers up here. I can leave them on that blue table up at the front. So the link for the survey is broadbandms.com/skills survey. There's also a QR code on this flyer that will take you to the survey. My contact information is also on here. If you would like to email me for a paper copy, I can also send you a paper copy of the survey as well. The survey is available in both English and Spanish, and I think that's all I had to say. So if you are an organization that fits into this category of digital inclusion work in Mississippi, or know of any organizations who are doing this work in the state, we really want to hear from you. This will help BEAM know what resources are currently in the state and what work is being done, so that can go into their planning grants. And I will leave the flyer up here, flyer that I have that has all of the information, the URL, the QR code, and also my contact information. I will leave that up at the front for you. And if you have any questions, I'll be here for the remainder of the meeting and you can come and talk with me. So thank you. Thank you.
We want to make sure that Devin, that we get your information in the chat. I was close enough that I could read what was going on in the chat up here for our folks who are watching virtually. So that is important to know what assets we already have. And I think what's going to be important with that also is keeping that updated. And we are committed to updating that on a very regular basis, because I know I always hate, you go somewhere, it looks great, something's available, and then it's no longer there. So our office is going to work to keep that updated. So y'all had time to process and to think a little bit about it. Jamie, do you have anything you need to say, or should we go to a time of questions and answers? Question? All right, so y'all had a little time to digest what is coming for Mississippi, kind of where we are with these different grant funds. It's very confusing often, these different funding streams. But I would love to hear from any of you, any questions you have, or suggestions you have, strategies that you have. I would ask that you be mindful of everybody's time. If you have a long detailed suggestion or strategy, I'm going to want you to email that to me so I can have all the details. So who's got a question though? Yes, sir. Yeah, so let me talk. I really brought these maps here to have a little color in the room. This is the map that we started with almost 2 years ago, that we just drew in-house in our own office, that shows the FCC areas that were already served, and then some of the RDOF awards kind of gave us an idea of what areas we were going to be looking at. I think this also has the CARES Act funding on it. You'll recall that in Mississippi, we did $75 million of CARES Act funding for broadband expansion, primarily to co-ops, but some to a couple of other providers as well. And I was at the public utilities staff, and we administered that funding at that time. And that's really when we came up with this map. The other map we made to show the RDOF funding, so we could understand the RDOF funding. That map that's on the foam board, the gold portions of it is RDOF funding, because we're trying to get a handle on where all of that RDOF funding was. And then the highway map we have over there, that's where we've had meetings all over the state. We were trying to make sure we're pretty geographically diverse as we had our meetings. So that's kind of what our maps are. But let's talk about maps. Ashley, is there a way for us to go online to broadbandms.com? Okay, so we're going to look at our broadbandms.com, and what I'm going to show you right now is our CPF map, the grant that we're working on right now. So as we move towards BEAD in this challenge process, we're going to have a map that looks differently, okay, shortly, soon. But this is what we're using right now. Let's go to the CPF map. And I want to show you some of the features of it. So what this CPF, we've used this to show what locations were eligible from funding and which ones were not. But this is kind of an indication of what's going to be available. So let's use, all right, so we got to give it a moment to fill in here. So you can look at the different areas of the state. This is, even though this was eligible and ineligible for CPF, this really shows a lot of our unserved areas. So unserved areas are the red. So let's see, up in North Mississippi, there's been really the northeastern part. Those areas of the state are totally built out. Those co-op areas, they've totally built out. Then you move over in the Delta, and you see those are kind of scattered out, different areas. Yeah, come in some. You know, our population is just more scattered in the Delta. And what we're using now is actually, in the past, when looking at service, we've used shape files or census blocks. We've used blocks, but technology is a lot better now, and we can look at the actual location. We can look at your actual address. So can you put in, let's just pick an address. Anybody got their address? Pick an address for me, Ashley. Maybe down in Southwest Mississippi, near me. Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying, Chris, you're saying that when you put in your address, it goes to your neighbors? So that's exactly the type of thing that we're working to connect on these maps and on the FCC map. So yeah, we'll work on that. If you put in an address, for example, yeah, click on one. So like, here's an address down in Lincoln County. So over here at the side, you can click on it. It gives the address. It's a residential building. And then it will have the funding program, which we all know is very important. Does it already have a funding program assigned? None. This one has no funding program assigned. No, it's eligible for either CPF that we're about to give out in the next couple of months or BEAD. And then this is what's there currently. It shows what services there currently. If you can scroll down just a little bit, for example, this has some AT&T copper, T-Mobile, Viasat, satellite, or Starlink or HughesNet. So none of the speeds that are listed there qualify as high-speed internet. So it shows up on our map as unserved. So we have been working very hard. We think we have every location in the state of Mississippi. Again, there are some issues. Sometimes one address goes somewhere else, but we've got all of this data has come from it's US Post Office data. We have some utility data in there. We have worked very hard to combine a lot of different data sets. Our mapping contractor has bought different data sets that go in there to get all these addresses correct. And so I'm not exactly sure how to handle, you could do a challenge, I think, and get on the FCC website, get it, yeah. So, but that's something for me to think about here is what to do if your address is wrong. Yes. Yes, any address in the state. Yes. They do. The RDOF awards, they're required, they have milestones. So their first milestone is in 2024. Are all of them 2024, Angel? Or you think? Oh, I'll repeat the question. I'm sorry. So the question was, if it is RDOF funding, what is kind of the timeline for that? And if it is RDOF funding, all of the RDOF awards have a 40% milestone by 2024, and then it's 20% every year after. So the families that are getting Starlink, you know, so Starlink is a great resource for I think for a family that it does not have service right now, that is their location is in the RDOF area, you know, so might be a temporary fix until they have service. And then they're going to have to make the decision. Yeah. Yeah. So this is what we're currently using for our CPF, and you can certainly go to it. It's at broadbandms.com. And then if you go to for ISPs, which is internet service providers, then you can go to it. We are going to have a map specifically for the challenge process up within the next month or so as we run that challenge process. That won't be kind of as convoluted to get to. So it'll be much more clear. We'll have a direction to it on the very front of the website. Can you go to where Devon's survey is on the website? So this is anybody else have a question about the map before we leave it? Okay. So could you go back to the website and let's look at where that survey is? I think it's probably under resources. Yeah. Yeah. Resources and then skills survey. So you can find that and do that. What other questions? Yes, ma'am. The scoring rubric is public, isn't it, on here? In the scoring rubric online? Yeah, the NOFO that we issued for the Capital Projects Fund includes that scoring rubric, and it's on this website. It's under for ISPs. Yeah, resources. That notice of funding right there has the scoring rubric on it. We do not have the final scoring rubric for BEAD yet, and it will be subject to approval by the feds. So the question is there a list of where all we've been? And yes, we do have a tracker with all of those on it. And it will be as an appendix, an attachment on our 5-year plan. Mhm. Yes, sir. So the question is really about public Wi-Fi for people who don't have a fixed address, or perhaps state parks or different places. We do have, as part of the Capital Projects Fund, $3 million designated for public Wi-Fi. We have been, quite frankly, we've been really involved in the other portion and focusing on that first. But we will get to that public Wi-Fi portion very soon. So yes, we are contemplating that and we'll have that out shortly. Mhm. Yes, another question. Mhm. Thank you. I tell you, we have a small staff, but a very dedicated staff that has worked extremely hard. We've done a lot of work in the past year. I see another question in the back. We have Bradley Lum is on our core planning team. And so we have had a lot of conversations with Bradley and would love to have some conversations with you as we work to have finalize our plan. So yes, and the question was about incarcerated individuals. It's one of the, and not necessarily incarcerated, but you know, after incarcerated, those who are on parole and those who are recently released and what opportunities they might have. And so that is one of the covered populations. And that was the question was how has our office reached out to that area? And we do have someone on our core planning team from Department of Corrections. Who else? Yes. So the question is our office providing funding for cities or counties to market themselves to providers? Funding our help. We are not at this moment. There are certain very definable categories and ways that you can use this BEAD funding. And what we have done is we have found partners in nonprofits who have been able to help many of these communities where we think there is going to be a problem. For example, let's see, what was the Communities United? Communities United? Unlimited, yes, Communities Unlimited, I believe, is going to work, has a grant where they're going to work with 10 different communities in Mississippi to prepare to try to find someone who's going to provide service. Also, we've worked with the Appalachian Regional Commission and Delta Regional Commission to do that as well. We have also independently, our office has worked with any community that we've talked to, and we've done a lot of outreach with a lot of representatives and senators as well to lead us into their communities, to talk to their various boards or elected officials to try to identify a provider for them. You know, I think just from the capital projects funds applications that we got, I am very optimistic about the providers coming into rural areas. Especially with our co-ops and the area that they are already providing service to. So Mississippi, we have 25 electric co-ops and 17 of those are providing service. So those electric co-ops have really already reached some of the most rural areas in Mississippi. So we will be looking at each community, and if there is a community that needs some assistance, but we will certainly provide that or have them partner with someone, but we have not done that as yet. Any other questions? Yes. You know, the optimal is fiber to the home. And when we say home, you know, the fiber runs out on the street, you know, and then there's some coax probably that comes into your home. But, you know, that is what we're looking at as we are doing these data modeling and determining how much fiber is needed for the state of Mississippi. You know, our goal would be to have fiber run by all of these homes. Angel, you look like Angel has more technology information than I did. Do you have anything to add? But that is our goal. And again, it's going to depend on, of that 268, we hope we're down to 171. We hope we can get down further than that, how much money we have to build it out. Yeah. Yeah, and as Angel's my grants manager, our goal is to future-proof this technology. This is a once in a generational time to build this out. Everybody says, you know, this is like when we built out electricity in the United States into rural areas. It's really the same thing, and this is our opportunity to do it. We want to make sure that we have technology that is going to last into the future. When I go do some smaller meetings, often in my presentation, I have a picture of my grandbaby who's 9 months old. And, you know, she's going to go to college or graduate from college in 2043. And if you think about that, think of what the technology is going to be then. We can't even imagine what it's going to be. I'm hopeful that I have a robot to do my laundry. That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, you got another question? Yes, sure. Yeah. So the question is about the ACP, and is there an issue with people choosing cell phone service with the ACP rather than broadband service with the ACP? And yes, that is a problem. And the ACP is available for cell service that can give you certain speeds. And that's been problematic. I did go meet with our tribe, our Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians, and they're the ones that really first brought it to my attention. And they said they were having problems. They got a tribal grant. They got about $8.5 million to build out in their area. We're so proud of them, and they finished it. But they said they are having real problems with their take rate and with adoption because many people are getting that ACP for their cell phone rather than a computer or a tablet at home. And if you get that ACP on your cell phone, you know, once you put it in your pocket or your purse and you walk out the door, then the kids that need to do their homework or you know, somebody needs to do something else doesn't have that opportunity. So we have talked to the FCC administers the ACP plan. So we've elevated that concern and do so anytime I get an opportunity to, and hope that they will ponder that. You know, there is the Lifeline program that is available strictly for cell phones. So, you know, perhaps there needs to be some review of those two programs and how they work together. But that's at a federal level, but we certainly have some input on that, I think, from Mississippi. Who else has a question? Yes, ma'am. So, some. Yeah, well, on electric lines. Yes, so. So the question that I've received is about the difference in buried fiber and then fiber that is aerial, that is on the electric poles that are out there, and the sustainability. If it is on the electric poles, is it sustainable? Because we all have such severe weather in Mississippi, right? I will tell you, I was hesitant as well too. Much of the build out, certainly by the electric co-ops in Mississippi, I would say 95, 98% of it is on electric poles. Just like the electric lines, then there's also the fiber that runs on the poles. It's aerial fiber. It's been up now for almost 3 years and it is doing well. It's now been on the coast. Coast Electric has all of theirs built out on poles. It's been through a hurricane, it's been through tornadoes, it's been through an ice storm up north. So the fiber really is holding up well. It is a much lower cost and quicker to do aerial fiber rather than the buried fiber. So, you know, it's kind of, if you do aerial fiber, yeah, you're probably going to have some more maintenance cost. But if you do buried fiber, it's a higher initial investment. So it's just a determination of balancing what that company is going to decide to do. But the fiber's holding out well. They said even often the poles will break and the fiber is holding the poles up, is the reports I get. Now, we do need people not to shoot the doves that are on the fiber during dove season. We need, that's a real problem here in Mississippi. So don't shoot at the, yeah, find the dove somewhere else. Yes, ma'am. Question is about the supply issue. It is an issue because everybody in the nation is building out right now. So everybody has their allocation. Everybody's doing exactly what the state of Mississippi is doing. You know, I think that is just an issue that's going to be with us. I think lead times are about 6 months to a year for fiber. But the good news is the suppliers and manufacturers all know that this is happening, so they've ramped up as well. So it's a problem, but it's one that we're dealing with. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Angel's got something to add to that. So Angel, like for example, the BIP grant that we are administering. We meet with them every week to check on their progress. All of our providers check on their process, ask them about things such as supplies and
so
everything.
one thing that we have learned is part of that supply chain delay is circumvented because there are certain requirements that the providers have to meet, whether it be going through archives and history for an cultural resource assessment, getting permits, things like that. So once a applicant is approved for a project, they're able to go ahead and post their RFPs, do those things so that they can start securing those items. And by the time they get all of their I's dotted and T's crossed and actually have the go ahead to proceed with construction, they've been able to get their equipment on hand.
All right, maybe one more question. Anybody else? And then I have a little homework for you. Yes.
Are you asking in terms of them placing the order for the fiber? I'm sorry, the question was, am I saying based on that comment that it is a first approved, first served in terms of fiber orders? Is that correct? So there are a number of places where the providers can choose to order their fiber. When we've talked with the providers, they all have their preferred vendors or things like that, and they have to go out for bid. So it would be up to the supplier, the distributor of the fiber to decide. My guess would be that they would fulfill orders in the order that they come in if they have it on hand. But the way that we do approvals is we don't approve applications one at a time. So for instance, with the Capital Projects Fund that we are currently reviewing, when we make an announcement of our preliminary determinations, it'll be for all applicants. We do not give preference on one application or another in terms of when we announce that approval. Thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
BEAD is going to be probably a little, I don't think we can announce 1.2 billion all at one time. So it's a little bit different. But what I will add to that is, the question is kind of about the priority and how fast projects can proceed. Is, every project is a little bit different. And because this is federal funding, there also has to be federal environmental approvals. And then there has to be a state, it's really a federal archaeological approval that the state handles. It's called the SHPO approval, State Historical Preservation Office. I've learned a lot of new acronyms here, that runs through archives and history. And, for example, we had a project that we funded under BIP up in Cahoma County. They got, there were some Native American issues there. The Trail of Tears went through that area in Cahoma County. And so the project had to stop, and they had to dig so many holes and look for artifacts. And, so I really didn't realize that we would be working with archaeologists, or that there would be a big need for archaeologists in the state of Mississippi, but there is. If you know anybody who's looking for a good degree in college, archaeology. We need some archaeologists, and they could go work for any of these engineering firms. So, and then another project that we're working with, they had to have a couple of hundred easements, and, getting those all together. And then, there was one lady who wouldn't give the easement that we need, so you just never know in a program, sometimes what is going to be an issue that might jam it up a little bit. So, which is why, our office and along with our partners, our compliance and monitoring team, we're going to be on calls with them every week or so. Okay, where are you on this? Have you gotten this environmental approval? Have you turned this in? So we're going to be monitoring all of that to help keep those programs moving. And I see Ty James in the back. I've got to introduce Ty. Ty is our federal program officer. Ty works for NTIA, which is the National Telecommunications Information Administration, which is providing all of this funding, and that will be monitoring all of our funding. So Ty is our federal program officer and our liaison that we work with to make sure we're doing all the things that we need to do. Ty, do you want to say anything? He does not want to say anything. He does not want to say anything. All right. We do have, Ashley, don't we have some homework for them? We have a sheet. Okay. Kaylin is going to pass out a sheet of paper for you and ask if you have ideas, suggestions, programs within your nonprofit? Do you need to meet with us? What do you need? So we found that it's just good to do it right here and get some information right here. We had a meeting with all of our state agencies about a month ago, kind of did the same thing. So if you would take a moment or take it with you if you need to, but if you want to just fill this out and give it back to us, we'd love to have it, or take some time as well. I'm going to turn this back over to Jamie. I am going to stick around and will be available for other questions. We might put the map up again, let you look at, actually, let's put the map up, and Jonathan, help anybody that wants to look at the map. But we are very excited about this opportunity. It is a tremendous amount of work, and we need your help. And we are just very glad that y'all been here today. I'm going to hand it over to Jamie. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to share something that we're doing at the Alliance, that just really kind of is partnering up with the Beam office and other entities and the key stakeholders that all have a hand in what's about to happen in Mississippi, especially over the next 5 years. So we really take pride in the Alliance of being able to serve as a neutral convener, as a facilitator, as a coordinator, kind of around different areas of challenges or opportunities or issues that our state is facing. And so, we do that through some of our other affinity groups that we have. And so we have a great opportunity right now to do that around the broadband deployment. And so we've received funding through the Media Democracy Fund to be the state-based coalition lead on an initiative that is called the Digital Equity and Opportunity Initiative. So there were 4 southern states that were selected as grantees through that funding. So we were very happy that we were selected in Mississippi to lead this initiative. So it's going to look like building out a statewide coalition of all the key stakeholders that have a role in this deployment. Their office has a lot of work to do. We know that nonprofits and some other organizations are doing ACP outreach. We know that there's digital skills, the work that Devin's doing and building out that asset mapping. We know that there's a lot of people that have a role in, every layer of this whole process. And so we just want to be able to bring all those people together to make sure that there's a coordinated effort across the state, because they're busy. They're busy over here. They're busy over here. So we just want to make sure that you stay focused on the work that you're doing, you stay focused on the work that you're doing, and we can help make sure that everybody's coordinating the work that they're doing and just getting around the table and talking about it. How can we partner together? How can we collaborate? How can we share resources? How can we support each other? And so that's the role that the Alliance is going to be playing in this. I don't have to be the expert in broadband. I just got to get all the experts in the room together. So we're really excited about that. We're launching that coalition in a few weeks, the first week of October. So some of you in the room have already been invited to join that. And if that's something that you're interested in, let me know and I can share more information about it. But we just are really excited to get to work alongside you in your office in this very historic thing that's happening in Mississippi. So thank you all again for being here today. For those of you that are online, if you had questions that weren't answered, or if you have anything afterwards, please reach out to me or Ashley or both of us, and we will try to help. Somebody did ask about getting the presentation, so we'll get that and I'll share that out, and some of the other links maybe that Devin shared as well. So thank you all again, and more to come. Okay.